What I want to do is show you how to use Zoom to run a meeting. Now you can use Zoom for a few different things. You can use it just for doing one-to-one video calls, like I do a lot of time with my one-to-one clients. So Noel, for instance, who teaches trumpet and is a jazz musician, if you want to teach trumpet to somebody one-to-one, you could use Zoom, but you could use also you could use Skype, and you can use anything you're used to using for video calls. So you don't particularly need Zoom for that. Zoom really comes into its own when you're doing group calls like this. So it actually does two different kinds of group calls. This is called a meeting, the one we're seeing, where you can see everybody on screen. And I think you might have a button somewhere that gives you a gallery view. It probably looks like a row of 9 buttons. And if you want to, you can click on that. And instead of seeing me, probably what you're seeing right now is a big version of me. If this is on the desktop version, it's different on apps. You're probably seeing a big picture of me surrounded by little pictures of everybody else. You can switch the gallery view on. Hello, Alistair. And it will show you then just everybody the same size and like we're all a big crowd. So you can choose your view. Speaker view is the alternative. That's what it comes on by default. And if you want to talk to me as a participant right now, you can click on chat. Now, everything I've described is going to be for the desktop version, because the mobile versions that you see on your phone and an iPad are so different that I won't try to cover them tonight. But basically, normally what you get on the desktop app by hovering over the video of your pointer, it brings up all these options and buttons, and then you can click on them. To get to those things on the mobile versions, I think you have to swipe, or you have to click on the screen or something. So it's a slightly different action. Last time I used it on the mobile, you had to swipe to get between the different people and to get to the chat screen. But the primary thing I'm interested in is the desktop experience, because if you're going to run, Noel's found the chat button, that's good. So if you're going to run live calls of other people, you need to know, I really recommend, if you're hosting a call, that you do it on Zoom rather than on the desktop app, rather than doing it on your phone, because that becomes very painful very quickly for anyone watching. Because your experience when you're using your phone is usually, first of all, people do this and go, hello, yeah, how's everyone? And you have to look at that for the whole time. And then they do this as well. And I know this because I have to put up with it with my clients who answer on their phone, and it does get a little bit. Sometimes I have to go, please stop moving it because I'm going to throw up. And it's much better if you can use your desktop computer and you can set it up right. And also what I've done, my laptop, I do use a laptop, but it's set up with an external keyboard and mouse and stuff. And so I can prop the laptop up to the right height. And the height you want it at is where the camera, assuming you are using a laptop, the height of the camera matches the height of your eyes. It shouldn't be you looking down on the screen, because this is what you call a serial killer shot of like, hi. It's not a good look for anyone. It's not terribly flattering for the old double chin either, so don't do that. What you want to do is have the camera level with your eye. That gives a very natural feel. It also feels like you're not talking down or talking up to somebody physically or figuratively. So some of the features that are important that you can see right now as a user are, well, the primary thing you can see is you can see the chat window. So if you all go and have a look at where the chat window is, like I say, for me to get it, because my view is quite different to you, I move my pointer around the video that's showing me, and I get all these buttons appear, which are normally hidden, and one of them is chat. I also have a bunch of other buttons as well, which I'll tell you about. And one of the things, so if you want to say hi, there you go, mine's bottom right-hand corner. Is it? Okay. Joe says hello. And you'll notice I'm recording this. Hi, Shravani. And Teresa. I'm recording this, and I've got it set in the Zoom settings to record everything automatically, because otherwise I would never remember, and then it would be a bloody disaster. And some of the things I do are quite important. So, you know, a lot of people are expecting a recording. So I'm going to record this and put it up later. And it should show you, I think, that you're being recorded. And it is best in the Zoom settings to just, if you're going to do a lot of this stuff and you've promised people to send recordings, make it automatically record locally on your computer. That's my preference. You can set it to record to the cloud, which is, it sends it up to the Zoom servers, and then it converts it afterwards. It is quite slow, and I noticed that yesterday it took a couple of hours to do that conversion process. Now, if you're recording on your phone, I think you only have the option of recording to the cloud, but otherwise, ask it to record locally, which means it records on your computer, and then it deposits it in a folder called Zoom. But it will do a bit of conversion first, so it'll probably use a lot of your battery and a lot of your processor if you're using a laptop for about 20 minutes or something after your call. So I want to show you what it's going to look like when you run something, and then I'll also go back and look at the settings later. So the view you're going to have will look like this, and I'm basically going to have to show you a screenshot because it's the only way I can do it. So what I'm going to do now is, you've probably got a share button and I've got a share button. If I press share desktop, that's showing you everything on my desktop. And what it doesn't show, what it doesn't pick up on this thing, is it doesn't show what I'm seeing, which is the controls and stuff. So that's not great for my purposes of trying to demonstrate how to work Zoom. So what I'm going to have to show you here is a screenshot I took a minute ago. Oh, bugger, it's got no buttons on it. Why has it got no buttons on it? I'm pretty sure I screenshot this. Hold on, let me just try that again. Let's see if this works. Yeah, that is working. Okay, let me just, I'm gonna have to stop the share and do it again. I must have just screenshotted it at the wrong time. Oh, unless it's just, actually, I think I might have actually got it right. I think it was just cropped off the bottom because it's not showing the whole thing. So I'm going to share my screen again. And don't know that. Right, this is what it looks like. So, serious face there. So this is a screenshot of what I'm seeing. And I'll just make it full screen, actually. That might make it a bit more understandable. And I'll show you, this is the view you're going to get when you're running an event. So I've opened the chat window here. And basically, if I click on that chat window, that panel disappears. And if I click on it again, it reappears. Similarly, there's a thing down here called Manage Participants. And that also opens up another panel. And if a chat window is open, it'll come underneath. And it will show all the people who are on there with their names, and it will show you who's making noise and who isn't. And in actual fact, what I should do, oh, okay. Right. Let me see. I'm going to have to show you how to work. This is going to require another screenshot. There you go. Let me open it in preview. Okay, so you can see this view, and on this view, it shows this is the Manage Participants window that's popped up that you can see in the screenshot. It's showing everybody's name. I can switch on and off their audio and their video, and you can see the way I switch somebody off, if I hover over Noel, then I can click mute and it will mute just him. You can click mute all and that will mute everybody on the call, and you can unmute all, which is pretty useful. That's the kind of stuff you need to know. Now, the settings for Zoom are really complicated because it's designed as a corporate product. And so they've put everything in there. and it's designed for people who are trying to manage Zoom for like 1,000 staff. So it is not simple in there. I will show you the settings interface a bit later. I'll fry your brain because I was hunting for something today. I found a couple of features in there when I didn't know I could do that, and switch some things on and off. And one of the things you can control that's really important to set when you set up a meeting is, does everyone join by default muted or unmuted? So I've got everybody here. I got everyone to join muted here because I was on a call with my friend Jerry last night and he had everyone unmuted. And then you get a couple of noisy people on there who are like, you know, who's out on the street on the mobile phone, and everybody just hears this constant soundtrack of Oxford Street over everybody talking, and it gets incredibly annoying. Now, if you know what you're doing, then you can allow everyone to join unmuted and then say, you know, allow everyone to talk for a bit. And if you see somebody who's noisy, you can mute just that person, you know, if it's just background noise. So if you look carefully at this image, there's a little green bit on the microphone symbol next to me. And what that means is John is currently making noise. Now, that's because I was talking at the time. But if somebody's got like, you know, the washing machine running in the background and they're not actually talking, you'll see a little green audio meter on their on top of their microphone symbol, and you know they're the person causing the problem. So if you've got, you know, some weird noise, you can track it down and turn it off. So if I go back to my other view, which shows the other controls, this is it here. The mute and stop video buttons are the same as yours. They basically mute me and stop my video, which you're normally not going to want to press unless you want to mute temporarily. For some reason, you know, something noisy is happening in the background and somebody else is talking. You can see the recording control buttons down here. You can see the red thing that says end meeting. That's how you end the meeting for everybody. And then you have two options, which is leave meeting and let everyone else continue, or end. You'll almost certainly want to just end the thing for everybody. When you do that, it then kicks off the conversion of the recording, if you've been recording, into a format which you can use. I think I don't know what it converts it from and to, but it turns it into an MP4 or something like that at the end. So if you get everyone on mute, what you can do is you can manage the conversation in the chat window. So you can actually have everybody muted and say, hey, if you want to ask a question, ask in chat, and do that. So the chat function is very useful for that. I've never used the polling. That's like, if you want to ask a question, which you can define what the question is and say, you know, how are you feeling right now on a scale of 1 to 10 about the coronavirus or whatever it might be, then you can get people to answer the question. Or, you know, how skilled are you at playing trumpet at this point? How would you describe yourself? And you put 3 different levels in there. I've never used it because it's a bit of a kind of palaver, but it might be useful at times. The invite button allows you to, it normally asks for a contact, which is only a contact Zoom knows about, which makes it virtually useless as far as I can see. But what you can do is, it also has a little link. When I click on invite, it says copy the URL of the meeting. And that's very useful because if suddenly somebody goes, I can't get in, what's the link again? You go invite, copy that URL, and then you send it to them, like if they're texting you or something, you send it to them by text or by email, and they can get in straight away. So those are the controls I see as somebody running a meeting. Why don't you, if you want to ask anything, unmute and tell me, and I'll answer your questions on the spot, and then we'll go into how to set the settings.
Hi, John. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Noel here. Hello, everyone. This is brilliant. Thank you very much. And I think this is an amazing facility for me to use for
Yeah.
teaching groups of trumpet players, for example.
Yeah, you can.
Do a masterclass. It's absolutely perfect. So I think
You'll definitely want to have control of the muting facilities with a group trumpet meeting.
Yeah, I found all that already. I think it's quite intuitive, the controls. So
Yeah.
I'm liking it.
Yeah, it's good and it's fairly reliable. It's setting it up can be a bit fiddly, but once you've done that, everything works largely as you would expect. I think it's what really confuses people is the setup stuff. So I will show you that. And I can't remember if I finished my description at the beginning, which is there is another form of meeting called a webinar. And you have to pay extra to run webinars. I do that. Webinar is like a web seminar. That's when you want to have a lot of people on there. And it's really about, it's more like you're broadcasting to them. So typically I'd run a webinar. You won't see everybody on screen. You'll just see me on screen. I might share my screen to show a presentation. And then I'm going to mute Simon because I think somebody's typing. So I can share my screen and then people can talk back to me on chat. So it's like me on video and then coming back on chat. And you really only need to run webinars if you're going to do things like, if you're taking the place of a live presentation, then that's when you want to use webinars where you might have like 100 people on it. I think there's a maximum number on meetings of, I don't know what the maximum number is. I mean, I think largely you can do everything in a meeting that you can do in a webinar. So I don't know what the difference is, except I know that webinars can go up much larger. I think you can go up to 1,000 on a webinar, or possibly even beyond that. But on meetings, it'll top out at some point, particularly if it's trying to show video for everybody, because that's quite processor intensive. So why don't I show you what Zoom looks like when you're trying to set up a meeting, first of all.
Sorry, John, can I just ask you a question about chat and muting? Which do you generally prefer in a session like this where you've got 1,000 people or so? Do you generally prefer them to be muted and interact via chat, or are you happy them generally talking?
I think it's quite, there's a liveliness to people talking, which you don't get with chat. Chat is a bit staid. So often what you'll get is both. Like this meeting we did with Jerry, he had 40 people. It was like a coronavirus support discussion. And everyone was unmuted, but some people chose to communicate on chat and comment, particularly when someone else is talking, rather than interrupt, they go, oh yes, I've seen that. Here's the link to the article. So that combination works quite well. I think if you've got 12 people, start off with them maybe all unmuted, and then be ready to hit the mute all button if it turns into a cacophony.
Yeah. Okay.
Or just mute the individual person if it's obvious if it's just one or two who are causing all the trouble.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So if you look under meetings here, I've got meetings and webinars. Here's all the stuff. Let's see if I probably can't change the settings of this. But you can see the default, this is the meeting going on right now. And when you set it up, when you go, new meeting, you can actually copy one you've used before. Otherwise, you can start from scratch, but it's quite good to copy from one you've used before. Because then you can guarantee you're not going to mess something up that you've forgotten to set before. And like I say, there are a lot of settings in here, a lot more than is apparent right now when I'm not in edit mode. But the key things is what you'll do is, I'll tell you what, I'll do it. I'll just create a new one. So if I schedule a new one, this is what it's going to ask. Oh, you see, that is a glitch where it's kind of automatically saved it, even though I think it might be the autofill causing that. So here's the name of the thing, and I'm going to call it, super meeting because it's super. And then there's a description, which you put down there. put in the time and date. And you can actually set up meetings to be available always, but it does have a little bit of a different behavior if you do that. The good thing about setting a time is that it makes it a bit more apparent when it is. And it will, if you've got notifications on, Zoom will actually remind you your meeting is starting if it's got a specific time. The duration, as far as I can tell, it doesn't cut you off. If you say it's an hour and you go over an hour, it doesn't cut you off or anything. I think it's mostly just for setting people's expectations. If you set recurring meeting, you can set it to be like a regular appointment. It does have a slightly bizarre behavior if you do that. I can't remember what it did, but it caused all sorts of problems for me when I did that. So I generally don't, even if I'm doing regular meetings. Registration means that if you say it's required, people will have to enter their name and email and stuff before they register. It's debatable. Like, I didn't make you do that. It's debatable whether there's any advantage for that. I think it might send them reminders. So I don't know the answer to everything, because all I know basically is how I use it. And there are like 1,000 different ways of using it. Because like I say, it's a corporate product with a lot of different options. And yeah, the way I use it is I do manual reminders that are outside of Zoom. But I think if you make them register, it will send them automated ones. The meeting ID, everyone, when you have an account, has a personal meeting ID, which can be used repeatedly. But this one was of a generated new one. You can ask for a password before people can get in. So if you want to make sure that only people, it doesn't really matter, because generally for most of us, we're only going to give the link to people that we want to. So there isn't really much point in having a password, but some people might want one. Then here's a couple of important settings that do matter. This is like by default when people join, host is you. Do you want your video to be on or off? And I would always say you want it on, unless there's a very good reason. Why not? And for participants, if it's going to be on by default, it'll be a meeting like we're looking at now. It will warn you. I think you all will have seen a warning when you joined that says you're going to join with video, and it shows you your live video, which is quite a good thing, because you suddenly realize, oh shit, I've got no shirt on, or something like that. And in the early days of video conferencing, I've heard stories of people, coming online and being naked and stuff and not realizing it. I once clicked on a link that said, oh, join this discussion about something interesting. And this is 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And I clicked it and I thought it was a webinar. It was actually a Zoom meeting where I was on screen. And I just got up and I thought, well, it's good job I'm wearing clothes, because I didn't know that was going to happen. So, but the good thing now is that when you join Zoom, I think it always says, hey, you're about to go on with your video. Is that okay? And you have an option to switch it off if it's not. This option here about audio, I leave it on both, because what that enables people to do is if they don't, I can't think why they would want to do this, but you can phone in to take part. And considering you can get the app on your phone, it's not an awful lot of use, but I just don't want to kind of deny anybody anything. Computer audio is what you're all using, but I leave it on both. And now here's a couple of options that are quite interesting. Enable join before host. If you do that, oh God, I don't even know how these all interact, because that and enable waiting room, I think, impact each other. Enable join before host means you are actually in the meeting if I'm not. So it means like you might be able to talk to each other before I get there, which you may or may not want. Waiting room, I think, means that you'll be held in a sort of holding space. You won't see each other, but you'll be in a holding space somewhere. To be honest, I don't know how those two things behave, because I don't use them usually. So you might have to check the help or just leave them switched off, which might be an awful lot safer. In the webinar version, which is the thing I run quite often, the options are different, so I know those a bit better. One of them is to has an option, say, enable practice session before your broadcast. And that's quite a useful option for webinars. What it means is I can start the webinar and I'm not immediately on screen. I'm not immediately broadcasting to everybody. Only authenticated users can join. I think that means they need to have signed into their Zoom account. I wouldn't use that. Record the meeting automatically is the one I mentioned earlier. On the local cloud is a good one to, on my local computer is a good option. When I did a cloud recording the other day, it took hours to convert, possibly because they're very busy at the moment. So then when you go save, you'll get, it'll create that meeting. And the important thing it produces is there's a registration URL for people to sign up and get their details, but you can just give them, where's the normal, well, because I've enabled registration, I can't just give people, it's not providing me a Zoom link to give people. If I hadn't done that, it would give me a link to enable people to join straight away. So this link here will ask people to register before they join. I normally just allow people to jump straight in. So this is now your meeting is basically set up and people can start registering and you can go live at whatever time I set it up, 8 o'clock tonight. And it will just start. So the other thing was plans and pricing. I wanted to talk about the different options for buying. There is a free level. Normally I would say this works fairly well. The big limit here is that you can only have a 40-minute call, and that's not enough for some things. So if you need to go over 40 minutes, you're going to need to pay. And there's another problem I've heard. A few people have been reporting that the system's been overwhelmed because there's a lot of demand on Zoom at the moment. And I have not seen that at all on my paid level. So I'm assuming that they may be rationing the availability for free people in order to preserve bandwidth for people like me who are paying, I'm paying $54 a month or something. So if you want to guarantee this thing works, it would probably be worth shelling out $14.99 a month because it's not a great deal of money. And if that's your most major business expense, you're doing very well compared to mine. So, you know, don't be too skinflint about it. If it's a central part of your business, if you do, you know, David's talking about doing things for people for free. So you might just want to use the free version. But if you're actually running paid lessons, then don't be skinflint. So that's all you need. You don't need the business version. I don't know. I think I'm paying the pro, but I've added on the webinar option, which is a lot more expensive. It's $40 on top. And the webinar version allows you, here you go, starting at $40 per month, interactive video, 100 interactive video panelists, host controls such as mute, unmute panelists, recording and more. Oh, this makes me wonder whether you're not going to see the same as me then. Yeah, so what I've told you is my version, and my version is the high-end version. So when you sign up, you're going to have to tell me if what I've told you is actually true, because it says here, host controls of mute, unmute, panelist recording, and more. That makes me wonder whether you're going to see all the options I've described. I can also live stream to Facebook. That's interesting. So here's what I recommend you do. Sign up at least on the free version, and I'm going to press stop share. Sign up on the free version and then try it out with somebody. So if you're going to do a one-to-one thing, call somebody up, like basically you can initiate a Zoom meeting straight away and in your private room or whatever it is, however it's shown on your free version. And then take the link and say, hey, whoever you think is online at the moment, can you just join me? And get a friend to help you out and practice using the controls and seeing what they look like. Because although I've just described all these things, I'm now a little bit concerned that when you join the free version, it's going to look completely different. And you may or may not get the same versions. Now, Shravani says, I have the pro version, but the home screen doesn't look like what you just showed me. And the screen you showed is not the settings section. So, like I say, Zoom is quite complex according to what you're paying for. And there's a lot of complexity to it when you get into the deeper settings, because it's designed for giant corporations with thousands of users, and that you can switch on and off features for different people. So what you're going to see, I don't exactly know. It'd be interesting to see a screenshot of your version, Shravani. So Noel, he's raising his hand. You can just ask him. You can just, if you want to. What does that actually do? I normally ignore that, to be honest, Noel. So there is this feature to allow people to raise their hand, meaning they want to ask something.
Well, I was just going to say that looks like a way of managing politeness.
Yeah, I guess so. To be honest, I don't think you really need it, because unless you've got thousands of people, maybe you could ask them to put up their hand if they want to go live. So that might be useful. So if you had like loads of people and you wanted somebody to say, hey, can I speak? Then that might be useful. Shravani says, try to put screenshot in chat box, but it won't let me paste a pic. No, I don't think it will. You can email it to me, Shravani, or you can, just send it by any other means. But email is probably the best, and I'll look out for it and show it. But it won't be the same right now as when you're running something. Does anybody else have something? My page, when I open, looks completely different. Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. Do you leave the meeting options switched off? Which ones are those, Joe? Which options were you talking about? Let's have a look. Is that the view from your window, John? What was that? Oh, no, my backdrop. That was Bali from November. Before all of this happened, before the world fell apart. Yeah. Anybody else want to ask anything else before I finish? I mean, you in particular, for the ones you normally do. Do I leave? Well, the options, Joe, are, Shravani sent the screenshot. The options you saw are that I described while showing my screen were basically the ones that I use for most of my meetings, except when I'm doing a webinar where I'm expecting like 100 people or something. So this is a screenshot from Shravani, but I think Shravani, what we've got there is you've got a pro account, but we're looking at that's not the settings screen. The settings screen is inside the website. So you'll see it in there, but also that's kind of obscured what you've got on your view of your video. So I don't know if that helps us particularly. And besides, like I say, I think what you'll see as a participant right now won't be the same as when you're running one. So you'd have to take one when you're actually running a meeting. I've been on Zoom and others have been able to change the backdrop to a pic rather than the room behind you. How do you do that? Yes, you can. It is under the start stop video. I can't do it for some reason, but under the start stop video thing, which is currently labeled for me stop video, there's an option to choose a virtual background. However, when I tried to do it, it says your computer doesn't meet requirements. Your macOS version needs to be blah or higher, and you need to have an Intel Core i7. I mean, I've got the most powerful Mac available. So for some reason, it thinks I can't do that. But anyway, somebody last night on our group call had some background that was, some like the jungle or something, but it was being composited. Alistair asks, if I'm presenting slides, PowerPoint, and show myself as well, how do I do that? Yeah, so what you do is, by default, actually, if I share my screen, you'll see that I'm I'm in the corner, that you should be able to see my video now talking, even though what I'm looking at is like my web browser or something like that. So for instance, when I'm running a presentation, you'll see something like this. This is the course I run called the Pioneer Program. And you'll generally see this view, which is, I'm assuming you're seeing what I'm seeing, which is just my picture in a little square. And then you'll see the background as we go through the content, and I can go through the presentation. So it says you need a green screen to use backgrounds. Yeah, for some reason it thinks, so if you've got a Mac, it seems to not be able to cope with doing a live composite, because that's what I used to work in special effects. So it's doing guessing what the background is too hard for a Mac, or it's probably to do with their code and the way they've written it in their app, and they've written it PC first. So when you're presenting slides, you can choose whether you've got that little video of you or not. And sometimes I do present without that. For anybody who's looking at running their business online, let me show you something. I'll do a plug for a free thing I'm doing next week, because this is very relevant. I'm running a thing next week called the 5-Day Startup Challenge, which you might have seen me talking about. And there's a video that explains it. But what we're doing is, we've got 600 people registered so far, maybe a little bit more than that now. I haven't checked the numbers. Keeps going up. And Noel's taken this before. What we're going to do is help people find an offer and put it out into the world in 5 days. So if you don't have a business, it's like take your business idea and try and find your first client or your first buyer in 5 days. But I help you present it in a way where people actually want to buy it, and using everything I've learned over the past 15 years of doing this stuff. If you already work for yourself and you're trying to work out how on earth you're going to be able to deliver what you do if normally you work in person. So, you know, if you go out and fix stuff for people, if you run yoga classes or whatever it is, how do you do that? Well, you're going to be using Zoom, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to help you work out all that stuff out in the 5-Day Startup Challenge, because it's really like starting again. We're helping you to reinvent yourself. So if you want to take part, it starts on Monday, runs for 5 days. It's basically a few minutes a day, but it's this group. It's a really fun group of 600 people. And I'll be doing a video every morning, which you can watch later if you're not around then. I'm going to be going live every day at 12:30 to answer people's questions. We won't be using Zoom for this in actual fact most of the time. We're going to be doing it as Facebook Live. But for anyone who's interested, go and join, and then you'll get the invite and you'll get the instructions of how to come into that. And I don't run this very often, so it's a good way of getting my help for free. Shravani is asking a question here. So yeah, if you want to join that, go to theideaslab.org/5DC. I'll stick it in the chat window actually for anyone who's interested. To everyone. When people are posting in the chat window, just reminding me of a feature. By default, probably on a meeting, it looks like by default it goes to everyone. When you're doing a webinar, by default it only goes to the panelists, i.e. the person presenting. If you want to send somebody, if you want to reply to somebody privately, you can do. If you want to ask a question privately, you can do. The way you do that is by clicking on the little blue button that currently says everyone in the chat window and changing it to a particular person, or to, I don't know how you change it to me. So can you record promo videos on Zoom and save it as an MP4? Yeah, you can actually. So I've used Zoom before simply to record a presentation because it's quite simple to use. You can do that if you've got a Mac. If it's a presentation, you can actually do that inside Keynote quite nicely. So I do that now. But if it's something else, like I'm talking through something on my screen or a Word doc, Sometimes I'll use Zoom because it's just one of the easiest ways of doing it. And also because it allows me to look at the content on the screen and have my video imposed as a picture-in-picture at the same time. And then it saves it as an MP4 file, and I send it to the person it's for. Is it possible to have breakout rooms? Yeah, I didn't even know this, but I just discovered this because I was looking up settings earlier for something, and I discovered there's breakout rooms. I haven't enabled it personally. So yeah, amazingly. I don't know quite how that functions. I would imagine it could get very quickly enormously confusing because I don't know what your view is of that breakout room or what other people's view is. So maybe start without using that and then see what it's like. What's the latency like if I want to record a band with musicians in different locations? It's not good for that because I think the latency is not bad. Skype is better. It's really tricky to do that. I know Facebook Live, the latency is terrible. It's 10, 20 seconds. But Zoom is faster than that. Skype is even faster. So I think you're getting it largely. I mean, well, why don't I show you? You can actually tell how slow this is. I mean, well, I guess it was only. I don't think you can really tell. I mean, I could show you that it's clearly 6:44, and if it's 6:44 where you are on your watch, it's not a minute out. I think you'll be within seconds, and I don't know how much.
We need to be within nanoseconds.
I know that's the problem. Yeah. And so actually doing that is quite complicated. And I don't know, there might be specialist musicians equipment that have done that, but I know it's a big challenge to stay in sync remotely. You'll have to Google that one. Okay, so I think we'll finish it there. A little bit random. I've never tried trying to demonstrate the thing I'm actually using to demonstrate before. So it got a little bit meta and weird. And just discovered that perhaps my view is not the same as yours because I've got this webinar option. So go out and at least register for the free version and do a practice run with one person. Get a friend who's willing to do that. And if you actually, I've got, let me just look at this. Oh no, I thought I had it. I know where it is. It's in my text edit file. I've got a Zoom link here. Oh, I thought I had. No, I had a kind of elegant link. Anyway, that's a link to register for Zoom. It's my affiliate link, which I think, I have no idea how much it pays me. It probably pays me £1 a month, but if you feel like using it, you can do. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming along. Nice, good little experiment, I think. And if you want to have a play with making your business work online, then come to the 5-day startup challenge because we'll be having discussions around this with hundreds of people who found themselves in a rather tight spot at the moment. And it'll be a good, positive environment. So cool. I'm going to go and have my dinner, I think. And I'll see you all later. I hope you have a good weekend and you're coping okay with all the craziness.
Excellent. Thanks very much, John. All the best.
All righty.